What does it mean when the Bible tells wives to submit to their husbands? In chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "In the same way, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that even if some disobey the word, they may be won over, without a word, by the way their wives live when they observe your pure, reverent lives." The first thing we need to notice here is that this part starts with "in the same way." Peter is going back to the larger part of the discussion that he was having in the last chapter, about how we should live in a society where we don't hold any power, in our relationships and in society. In chapter 2, Peter talks about how Christians should behave under governing authority. Now he speaks to wives, especially wives whose husbands do not believe. And in the first century Roman world, wives had far less social power than their husbands did. So Peter's not giving husbands permission to control their wives. He is speaking directly to Christian women about how they can remain faithful to Christ in their marriages, where their husbands may not share their faith. Notice the goal, so that even if some disobey the word, they may be won over without a word by the way their wives live when they observe pure, reverent lives. Won over. Peter's thinking about the witness of Christian life. He's saying like a woman's faithful behavior can speak powerfully to an unbelieving man, even when arguments do not. In verses 2 through 4, he says, "When they observe pure, reverent lives, don't let your beauty consist of outward things like elaborate hairstyles and wearing gold jewelry or fine clothes, but rather what is inside the heart, the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight." Peter's not saying that women can't braid their hair, wear jewelry, or dress nicely. His point is that true beauty comes from somewhere else. Culture judges beauty by what can be seen from the outside, but Peter's telling us that God looks deeper. Character matters more than appearance. And when Peter talks about a gentle and quiet spirit, he's not talking about a woman that has no opinions or no voice and no strength. Biblical gentleness is strength under control. It's a fruit of the Spirit, self-control. And quiet here is about an inner steadiness before God, not being silent while someone mistreats you. That's important and often misunderstood. This passage should never be used to tell an abused woman that holiness means enduring violence. Peter's describing godly character, not commanding someone to stay in danger. And then, in verses 5 through 6, Peter gives Sarah as an example. "For in the past, the holy women who put their hope in God also adorned themselves in this way, submitting to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You have become her children when you do what is good and do not fear intimidation." That final phrase matters. Do not fear any intimidation. Peter's not talking about fearful submission. He actually tells them not to live in fear. Their ultimate confidence should be in God. And that fits everything that Peter's been saying. Christian submission is never absolute towards other humans. God remains the believer's ultimate authority. No husband replaces God. No husband gets to demand his wife to sin. No husband gets permission to abuse his wife. And then Peter directs his attention to husbands. Husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker partner, showing them honor as co-heirs of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. This is really important. Peter does not say, "Men, you are superior spiritually." He says the opposite. Women are co-heirs of the grace of life, equal recipients of God's grace, equal heirs in the kingdom, equal in the standing before God. When Peter calls the woman the weaker partner, what he's talking about here is physical strength and their vulnerability within society, not spiritual inferiority. And he gives a pretty big warning to these husbands. If husbands refuse to honor their wives, their relationship with God is affected. Peter tells them, your prayers could actually be hindered. And that tells us how seriously God takes the way husbands treat their wives. So 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 1 through 7 is not saying that women are less valuable than men, or that men can control women, or that a wife must obey every one of her husband's demands, or that women should quietly tolerate abuse. Peter is teaching Christians how to honor Christ within their marriage, especially within a society where women feel limited social power. Wives are called to godly character. Husbands are commanded to understand and to honor their wives, and both stand before God. Biblical submission never makes one person less valuable than another, because Peter says that husbands and wives are ultimately co-heirs to the grace of God. Come back for chapter 3, verses 8 through 12.